People living in small towns, what's the recent scandal? A drama class was interrupted by a cow giving birth in the field across from the school. A pigeon got caught in the supermarket and it made front page of local news website with live updates. My grandparents' small town has had a recent outbreak of teenagers riding horses through the middle of downtown, while wearing nothing but face masks. Our newly elected mayor, who is a schoolteacher as well, caused a head-on car crash injuring 2 small children in the other car. She was found to be drunk and it was 3:30 p.m. on a weekday. The kicker, she wasn't charged with a crime as of yet, but she did resign after considerable thought. I left my small town years ago, but I was home over Thanksgiving and got an earful. The local grocery store was renovated, expanded after 30 years, and now everything's moved, and you can't find nothing. I was home for 4 days and literally every new social interaction with people in town involved the goddamn grocery store and how awful it is now. Spoiler, it actually looks quite nice and they hang signs over the aisles telling you where things are. You know, like a grocery store. A teacher posted a link to a porn site on his website for classwork instead of the recent assignment and got fired immediately. Apparently, this wasn't his first offense. The school gym teacher was fired after being caught masturbating in the equipment room. He was caught by 2 students. A few days later he killed himself. Everyone is a bit shaken up about it. Somebody's been murdering horses and PD is blaming wild boars, but at least a couple of the horses were shot. So a couple months ago someone left their fire pit in their driveway for a few days. They received a mailed letter from an anonymous neighbor shaming them for making the neighborhood look bad. The recipient then posted the letter on the town's Facebook page. People ran with it and created the first annual front yard fire night. The town went with the lowest bidder for a big roadwork contract, and it turns out they were totally unqualified for the job and were messing stuff up. So the town fired them and hired the second lowest bidder. Same thing. They're on their 3rd contractor now, IIRC, and the project, which was supposed to be done this summer, will hopefully be finished sometime next year. A local police department likes to post wanted pictures on its Facebook page. The other day, I saw one of their shitty wanted postings of some woman who is allegedly evading police for drug charges and intent to distribute. The suspect herself commented on the post and said, "I'm not evading, I'm not on the run, I've been out of town, and when I come back I'm turning myself in." Maybe not a scandal, but I thought that was pretty funny. The scandal in my town is always the same. Someone is sleeping with someone else's husband. Or the 50-year-old dating the 18-year-old. Not really recent, but the owner of the petting zoo turned out to be a serial murderer and buried 2 corpses under the goat enclosure. A lot of kids volunteer there and walked over them unknowingly. He murdered the couple, and used their house, car and money. Edit, he murdered more people before this couple. That's why I called him a serial killer. My grandfather comes from a small town with less than 5,000 people and it is kind of spread around into smaller districts, so essentially his district has about 500 people and the bakery turns into a bar at night. I grew up going there at least twice a month until I was 14, and once a month until I moved abroad for a while. Despite being such a small town, and greeting the mayor who was the local butcher every time my family needed to buy something, the butcher shop was also the 2nd biggest market in town. We had big town issues. One of the biggest issues was corruption, and since the town planned on expanding, was building a new public school and whatnot, they got some extra funds from the state. Our friendly butcher, mayor, decided to crack down on the folks that were stealing public money, and he ended up being shot to death by 2 men in a motorcycle in front of his 6-year-old while they played in a park near one of the main squares. I was in town that weekend and everyone was instructed to lock all windows and doors since the 2 men weren't caught. All lights were out by 7 p.m. and I could not think of a more terrifying evening. All my time spent there, with the exception of when 3 years later a jaguar decided to visit me at midnight in the little bedroom outside the main farmhouse. Nothing really, other than a few porch pirates. Someone did shoot at one of them, but no one was injured at least. Since then it stopped for now. There's no police station in town and the nearest one is a half-hour drive, so sometimes we have to take matters into our own hands. Okay, so our last mayor decided to not run this year because he's been in the news a lot for threatening to kill his neighbor's dog, as well as just threatening the neighbor in general. Wasn't faring well for him. So a friend of his who was a very well-known socialite and realtor decided to run in his place. Well, my city is sort of small, and the people who have lived here a while would like to keep the houses from being built pretty much on top of each other. So she quickly found herself opposed, with the competition's platform built around preserving the natural land we have left and dumping old, earmarked projects that were planned literally 20 years ago that no one wants anymore. Surprisingly, yet not surprisingly, her opponent won. And right after the opponent took office, she began pushing through decades-old earmarked land sales and making new land sale negotiations, the exact opposite of her platform, like mayor just means honorary realtor or something. People very much badly want her head on a platter. The population here is completely furious. To give further info, in my small town, population of 41,000. That includes kids. The city's main FB page, run by the socialite, only accepts adult residents of the city into the group, and the last I checked, there are about 35,000 members. Another example of how small it is here, someone a very long time ago dumped a flock of chickens in the middle of downtown. According to the stories, an old guy had a lot of chickens and, when he died, his son inherited everything, including the birds. He didn't want to keep the chickens, so, instead of selling them, he just figured if he dumped them off in the middle of downtown, they'd be scooped up or eliminated. What ended up happening, though, is that the town weirdly rallied around these abandoned chickens. No one takes them in. They're allowed to roam wherever they want, the outsides of restaurants, the post office, the library, schools, etc. Vets do chicken checkups pro bono, and people will absolutely lose their freaking minds if someone doesn't always respect the chicken. It's kinda odd. There are chicken souvenir everything all over the place, even though literally no one comes here to visit if they don't already know someone here, so they pretty much already have their chicken swag. Girls from my small town have taken to Twitter recently to expose a pretty well-known guy in town. He is notoriously known for being a player and messing around with girls on a daily. He is also known for stealing and being racist at times. We'll call him Martin. One girl started a massive chain effect by tweeting out of pictures of Martin and her texts with him where he uses the N-word. He is incredibly white, so big no. Another girl chimed in by saying that Martin also posed as her uncle's son when her uncle was dying in the hospital in order to steal his wallet and all his belongings. Then another girl added on by tweeting that Martin also harasses girls at parties and over the internet, including her. Over 50 girls messaged her, recounting their stories with Martin. 16 girls came forward to say that he raped them. Only 2 of them went to court. Martin won both times due to lack of evidence. There weren't even rape kits performed on these girls who went straight to the police. So these girls are posting on social media to raise awareness and to get something done about this guy. You can see his overdue karma is clearly coming. So many people in my small town have spoken up about it, but there's also a lot of people making excuses for him and blaming the girls who are making a stand, saying they're chasing clout. Kinda hard to watch, but I'm glad that something is being done about it instead of just silence. A few days ago, Amber Alert sent out an emergency message about a fellow in a green car who had stabbed his girlfriend and stolen their baby out of San Jose, which is 3 hours north of us. Lo and behold, the guy was caught right at our own downtown gas station when the kidnapper accidentally locked the baby and his keys in his car, which drew attention to him. A good Samaritan from an entirely different town, a tourist, put the puzzle together, and put the guy in a headlock until the authorities arrived. The biggest that I know of was a bully and overall bad guy from school that I sat next to in art class and tried to help in it was arrested for murdering a 20-year-old girl during a drug deal. He was going to buy weed off her but decided to shoot her, later stating he wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. She didn't die right away, either. He and a buddy of his drove around for 2 hours in her car while she slowly suffered, and if they had taken her to a hospital she would have likely lived. He was 17 at the time. I believe it was a couple years ago, but not much really happens here, thankfully. I've got 2. First one has happened almost 2 years ago about a girl in one of my classes. She was in lockdown because her parents didn't trust her because she did some things. Well, this girl is adopted. She quit coming to school and we found out she had been homeschooled. Well, no one really heard from her from them on. So one day, everyone hears that when her mother came home from work she walked in on her and her husband doing it in the bedroom. She was devastated. She kicked him out and the girl. She filed for divorce. The man, who is in his late 40s, decides he doesn't want his wife anymore. He left her, bought a new house and is living with the girl now. They're in a relationship since then. Second one happened last year when the football coach got arrested for sending a minor nudes and inappropriate messages vice versa with the girl. The cops had the girl's phone in custody when he sent one to her phone. It was so shocking because he was so well respected. His last name is one of those names that was instantly respected in the school, town. He has children that do sports and are also a big deal, so when this came out it hit them. But they weren't mad at their dad, they were mad at the girl for getting their dad arrested. His daughter said, quote, "When I see that bitch, I'm going to fucking beat her ass." That girl didn't come to school in a while. But everyone in the school didn't mention it, but we all knew. We knew from the secret whispers and the news. All in all, he isn't allowed to go to any school, town gatherings. He had to register as a sex offender. I'm the same age as all these girls mentioned. It was crazy.